Hey guys, I want to share my honest experience with having a parawing for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and it's not good.
Fucking joke. I'm officially doing it, but definitely not getting that wind.
I always try to be really honest in this channel, and this is one of those things where I've been given a product and I would love to represent the product in the best light possible. This is like getting a downwind board and you're a beginner downwinder and then trying to review the downwind board. You don't know how to downwind, so how can you review the board? And that's what it's a little bit like for me so far with the parawing. I don't know how to parawing, and so I can only make my best assumptions about the product. So this is not so much about the product, because I actually think the product's good, and from what I've seen, it's the best version out there. This is more about learning to parawing and the unique challenges that I've had. And I think the challenges I've had are weight-based and size of parawing based. So let me share the sessions that I have, and I'll walk you through what's happened so far and tell you why, to be honest, I fucking hated it. So my very first session, I obviously expected to have some challenges trying to parawing, but I used the 1540S and I used my 7.4 board. It was about 13, 14 knots. And I had every expectation that I would just get up. That's not what happened. I got up for about 2 seconds and then I tried to do a tack and I fell down. By the way, if I say tack or jibe wrong, I'm sorry, I always forget which is which. I spent most of that session just frustratingly stuck on the water, trying to get up, and I just couldn't seem to get up, despite feeling like there was enough wind in the parawing, and I was on such a big foil, I honestly thought I'd have no problems. Trent was out the same day and he got up. Trent is 20 kilos lighter than me and he was on a downwind board, but he was on a much smaller foil. So that was a bit frustrating to see him get up so easily whilst I was still struggling. So my next session was my next 3 sessions were similar conditions, and I have some footage of these, and I just kept going out when it was like 12 to 13 knots. And this is one of the key takeaways from this video, is parawings suck so freaking bad in light wind. The main issue is that they don't stay in the air when the wind is light or gusty. And so you might have a gust come, but your parawing is just stuck to the water in a big blob. Parawings fly really differently when they're really wet, and I think there's something to that. I'm not gonna be the first to say this, but my key takeaway from my first 3 sessions is parawinging in light wind sucks. Parawings have a short window of effectiveness, and they don't even fly at a certain wind strength. And you might go, well, I flew it on the beach and it flew, but you've got to then be like, okay, if the wind drops and the parawing goes in the water, it's now got to get up out of the water wet. And this is a big key, your body is in the way of some of that wind, because once it gets up high, it might fly and not have an issue. But when you're trying to get it up, your body's in the way sometimes, and that creates a small enough wind shadow that it might not get up off the water when you add in the weight of the water and the wind shadow. The other thing that I was doing was, and I often did this, and I think this is something you should do in lighter winds, is I would bunch up the wing by the leading edge and then throw it into the air. And that was to drain out the water. I have experienced that in windier days, you don't need to do this necessarily. You can get away with just pulling the lines and it will fly, but I'll get to that session next. But so far, say I'm 4 sessions in, I lost my voice from a session from swearing so much, because it was so frustrating. Now, one of the things, and this is a really good idea, is to get some sort of pouch, or like I did, I just got this little mesh backpack, and that was awesome. So I went out for another session and I took my wing and I took the parawing. And the reason I did this was so that I could get upwind and get a bit of a runway, because I was struggling with runway. By the time I would get up, I was in the shore. Same issues that you have when you're learning to wing. So what I did was I tacked upwind, I anchor manned my normal wing, and then I got the Parawing out of my little backpack. Now I had a little bit of success. I ran straight into a bank when I got up, but there was just not enough wind again. The disparity between what you can do with a wing and a Parawing is quite large. I would say it's like a 5 meter on a wing, it can get up in 8 knots, whereas a 5 meter Parawing is gonna be like 15 knots. And I'll show you this comparison. This is me getting up in 10 knots, maybe less. And you can see I can get up with the 1540S and a 5 meter wing on a 7/4 board. It takes like 3 pumps. Whereas on this same day, I was working so hard in order to get the Parawing up. So it's just something to understand. The low end of a Parawing is almost non-existent. I have since then gotten a 5.5 meter, and I think that is gonna make a big difference. A 4.2 for me at 95 kilos is it's just too small for the wind that we get. We often, if it is onshore and the type of conditions that I would use the Parawing, it's usually like 15 knots. And a 4.2, even with a big foil, is not big enough. Now, a 5.5 is gonna present different challenges, but a 4.2 for my weight is too small. And I think that's one of the takeaways from this video is you probably need to be realistic about the sizing, because I don't really ever use a 4 meter wing normal winging, and that's because of the low end. And why would I use a 4 meter in a Parawing, which has even less low end? So another takeaway is I would give this upwind wing thing a go, because what you can do is you could go out to sea as far as you want, have a play with your Parawing, don't go too far downwind, and then put the Parawing back away on your backpack like I did, and then come back in. I have found that this little backpack has actually been awesome, because paddling with a Parawing on your board sucks, and you really need something to put it in. So if you were trying to get out through a shore break or something, I would absolutely have a little bag or a pouch that you put it in, and I would almost not go Parawinging without one, in my opinion, because swimming with these things sucks. Okay, so we're on to about session number 5, and at this point I've had enough of Parawinging, but I thought I'm just gonna keep giving it a go. And I went on this particular day and it was 30 knots. What surprised me was how difficult it still was to get up.
Feel like I'm overpowered, but I can't get enough to get going. It's just stuck with me. Now I'm on the fucking...
I still found it difficult to get up. And I think I was doing the technique pretty correct, but there's something about my weight and how the wing responds to my weight getting going and changing direction that made it really difficult. I was on the 1540S, so I'm still on a giant foil. I'm on a 7/4 Cypher, so a big board and a 4.2 meter, and I still struggled to get up. Now, I did get up. There's no doubt about it that flying a Parawing when there's actually wind is a totally different experience. It gets off the water easy. It just makes life so much better. So this is one of those takeaways, like go Parawing when there's actually wind. But the issue I had was when I then got on foil, I was so maxed out. It probably wasn't 30 knots, it was probably like 25 knots. But I was so overpowered, it was insane, and it pulls you differently.
There's a bit of an irony to this that I'm on way too big a foil now, so I'm over foiled. This is my first experience where I'm not fighting to get it off the water. So it's purely just how much wind strength there is. But using this thing in light wind is absolutely horrible. But now I'm over foiled, I'm on too big a foil, so I'm gonna make this work and see how we go. But
I used to kite surf and I understand like edging, and that's, you know, I wing and I'm very good at edging upwind. But this is different, partially because of the size of the foil, but it'll be interesting to see how much better it is when I'm on a smaller foil. So let me know your thoughts and experiences if downsizing the foil sort of fixes the problem. But on a 1540S, I can fight against that in almost any wind with a 5-meter wing. But on the Parawing, I just couldn't fight against it. And it was pulling me over and I couldn't make any ground upwind, to the point that I actually did my first unintentional downwinder on a Parawing. I got pulled downwind so far, and because I don't know how to tack or jibe. And so I kept losing ground because I'd try and tackle jibe and I would crash, or the lines would land on top of me like a jellyfish landing on your head. And so it was very frustrating, and I was desperately trying to get upwind and I couldn't, just like the old days of learning to wing. And so I said, stuff it, I'm just gonna downwind home. It's about 3 Ks to home. So I couldn't get back upwind, so now I'm just gonna downwind back to my house. The only real bad thing is I don't have a leggy on. It's pretty big swells. New experiences, eh? So I did that, and that was great because I did get a sense for like, I did a downwinder on a Parawing. It was unintentional. I was actually just trying to learn to tack and jibe that day. But the experience was good. I was like, I can see why people would learn to do this. You can downwind to your heart's content in the same way that you would if you were paddling. And I think that was obviously why I intended to learn, but I did want to learn to tack and jibe so that I could get upwind. So from this session, I had serious doubts about how well I could go upwind, because I had hopes that I could go upwind. But I also had doubts about how much wind I would need. And then what if there's too much wind and then I can't go upwind? And I learned from this session that there is a very small sweet spot with a Parawing. And it does seem like there's a sweet spot for the foil size too. So I'm gonna use a bigger board. So I'll probably use my 8.6 cipher. And then I would really need to use a smaller foil. So I'm thinking I'll go down to my 960R or something, because I think the foil was a big reason that I was way overpowered and couldn't edge against the wing. And then the other thing is I need a bigger wing. Now, the reason I've decided I need a bigger Parawing is because getting up is still really hard, and that was flat water. So I imagine it's even worse when you're actually out in the bumps and it's really bumpy. Stowing is going to become an issue. Now, I've since gotten a 5-meter, and I actually took it out yesterday and I got up quite easily in 15 knots. I think the bigger wing will solve one of my problems, but I imagine stowing is going to now become a bit of an issue, and it's going to make life a bit harder. So we'll see what happens with that, and I'll let you know how the 5.5 meter goes. I've sent the 4.2 to Josh Koo because I just don't think I'm going to use it on the Sunshine Coast, given the sort of wind that we frequently get when it is onshore and I'm not paddling. One of the concerns that I have about Parawing is how easy it could be to get tangled up in the lines in a surf scenario. So that's something to think about. I wouldn't be using this in big punchy surf if you're not really experienced with it. And I don't think I'd use a leash. I would rather that thing be a long way away from me, rather than like this big heavy jellyfish trying to tangle you up. So I'm probably going to continue to not use a leash with it. I need to learn to tack and jibe. I had success doing tacks and jibes, but I don't know what I did to get success, because I would try and redo the same thing and the Parawing would behave differently. So if anyone can help me, I've asked Foilrat and I've watched other videos. I just can't seem to nail the tack or the jibe. And so that has been frustrating, because I work really hard to get up and then I have to come down because I can't tackle jibe, which is the same experience lots of people are having right now trying to learn to do normal winging. So I'll be honest, my experience with the Parawing so far has been it's harder than I thought it was going to be. That is conditions dependent, which is the same thing that happened to me with downwinding. I kept going out in too light a wind. Probably if I eliminated that, it'd be a lot easier. If I had gotten the 5.5 meter, I think everything would have been easier from the outset. So I probably made things harder for myself by thinking a 4.2 would be sufficient. I think the 7.4 is the right size board for my weight. I can't imagine myself being able to get up on a 6 foot style board at my weight without it being absolutely honking wind. And if it is honking wind, I'm probably gonna go do something else. Anyway, I really need to see better upwind performance than what I've currently experienced. It's, you know, when you're overpowered on a kite, I usually can use all that power to smash up wind, and you don't seem to be able to do that with a parawing. Maybe I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. I'm still new to this, but look, so far, I would love to quit parawing. I'm not gonna lie. I would love to just be like, actually, I don't need to learn this. I can already wing and I can already sup downwind. But I'm gonna persist, and I'm only persisting for you guys because I feel like I said I would tackle it. So look, that's my honest take. I have a 5.5 meter. I will make an update. I have experienced yesterday that made a massive difference in lighter wind. I got up so easy yesterday with the 5.5 meter versus the 4.2, which was always hard to get up on. Every session I've done, it's been hard to get up on. So I'm just always trying to be honest on my channel, and I just think the takeaways, which I've mentioned previously, one of them is just, don't just expect that it's going to be super easy to do this. I can wing, I can downwind, I'm a good foiler, and I've been frustrated. And James Casey, who I've been chatting to in the background, he's had similar experiences. It's very conditions dependent. 15 to 20 knots is the ideal range, and you do need to make sure that you get the right size parawing because it seems to make a huge difference about getting up. Once you're up, it's less significant, but yeah. So look, this is a longer video than I normally do, but I just wanted to share my honest thoughts. I haven't seen anybody sort of really, in my opinion, be brutally honest about the bad side of things. And I think that you should always mention that in any discussion and considering any sport. There's no negativity about the product itself. It's just to say that parawing is a little bit harder than you might think, depending on the sort of conditions that you get and the gear that you're riding. So hopefully there's something in this that has helped you. That's always my goal. I'm releasing videos every single Saturday, so please subscribe. I'd love to catch up to Mr. Bennett's subscriber count, just cause it doesn't matter, but let's just do it anyway. 60% of you that watch these videos aren't subscribed, so please consider it if I've earned it. And until then, I'll see you next Saturday.